Because you can fake for a long time, but one day you're going to show yourself to be a phony.
That's for true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what these, you know, a lot of people are doing these days. Watch people.
No, you probably won't be here right now.
Blessings, 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 blessings on this beautiful Sunday. And you're here with your host, Grace Levi. Yes, yes, yes. And you're on a segment of urban politics. And you know what we do on urban politics? We go over anything that has to do with the Black community. A lot of the commentary that I share with you is from that perspective, but we're going to do it a little grown and sexy today, meaning we're going to be very mature about this. What I'm going to be doing is an actual reaction video to a woman, and I'm going to start off by saying that I really respect Mechee X. I have done a reaction video to her before, you know, coming from an urbanized area. I understand her. You know, I understand her fire. I understand her a lot. But when I watched this video, I was like, wow. So as a Hebrew woman, what I'm going to do is we're going to play the actual segment of her live that she did yesterday. And I will say, before we just play this particular segment, I need you guys to go back and watch her whole live, because what she talked about was very important. That was some of the things that I have been sharing with you guys over the last couple of weeks, including most recently, because I kind of been focused on celebrity issue, Hollywood on fire. But a lot of the local news that I share with you, and even international news, has to do with what's going on with us in our community. So on her particular video, she was talking about an alleged hanging, in which I did show you guys a series of hangings on Rumble. I would assume, I don't think I showed that on YouTube, but YouTube, I'm about to start coming back hot. We're going to see how the algorithm treat me, but I do know what to share on YouTube at this point moving forward. So we did show a whole bunch of alleged suicides of Black melanated people across the United States. And we do know that's an issue. So I want to say shout out and respect to Mechee X for keeping her foot on the neck of the issues and actually putting the pedal to the metal and being out there from what she's saying. So I just have to say that first. So what we're going to do is put up her video, and we're going to react to the particular section where she talks about Hebrew Israelites, as well as she talks about the Nation of Islam. And she talks about the Hebrew Israelites in this particular segment because they went to one of the towns and protest. So we're going to listen, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to react, okay?
Legally taking people's cars, and they took Steve's life over this little crap. They work on the streets, that's what it is. So it's allegedly, right? But that's what the word on the streets is. I believe the streets more than I ever believe the news. Trust and believe that. Somebody asked me in one of my comments, you guys, they were upset at me when I said something about the Hebrew Israelites. Now let me say something. The Hebrew Israelites actually showed up for Rasheem Carter and came to Taylorsville, and they marched through town. Now, all the Black men marching through there really did make those white people angry. It really did. It made them mad, okay? So shout out to them for doing that. But let me say something. They marched, and then they went home, and, you know, they still hunt Negroes in the woods out there, and ain't nothing changed. I'm going to just throw it out there like that. Their efforts are appreciated. But let me be clear. Somebody's like, it's clear that you don't like Hebrew Israelites. And you should just say that. So I want to say first to you guys. Hebrew Israelites don't talk like me. They call me Edomites every motherfucking day. They tell me that when they come back, and God lets them reign, I'm going to be their footstool. So not only have I had to be a Negro and be enslaved in this life and oppressed, that when they rule, they're going to oppress me too, because my daddy is white, right? So no, the Hebrew Israelites that talk to me like that, no, I don't like them. They have extreme people in their religion, and what they believe. Now, I know a lot of Hebrew Israelite brothers. Ozone is one, right? That don't act that way. Shem, the brother that came to the Black Agenda, he's a Hebrew Israelite, Shem would never talk to me like that. Shem is a protector. Not only would he not talk to me like that, he would never let anybody else talk to me like that. So let's be clear. There are a lot of Hebrew Israelites that misrepresent your religion. You should check those extremists. It's not my job to check them for how they make you look. Somebody said, why don't I ever say anything about the nation? I feel the same way about the nation, right? I'm actually tired of watching Black men. Hebrew Israelites and far, just like Christianity is something taken over by a bunch of women and children. I think that Hebrew Israelites are more men than anything. It's a religion that is dominated by men. When you look at the nation, there are tons of Black men that are in the nation, right? But when I watch them show up in suits, they feed the community, they sell bean pies. The Hebrew Israelites will march through somebody's town and show their presence with their fringes on, or stand on the corner and preach the word of God to everybody and talk crazy to the white people. You know, none of that is doing a motherfucking thing for the real reality of what we're dealing with. So, as a Black woman, I'm sick of watching Black men take the back seat and do this patty cake ass bullshit that does not get us anywhere. I don't know. Y'all live in your little like fake ass reality where you think that this shit don't go down until the shit happens to you. Let me tell you something. Everybody that we spoke to as a victim, I asked them all this question. What would you say to those Black people that think this could never be them? You know what they all said? The answer was the same for everybody. They said, that used to be me. I would have never thought this could have happened to me. But as soon as it happened to y'all, then y'all want somebody to come and be there for your situation. But you think it don't happen to nobody else but you. And I'm just sorry. We are being brutalized and met with ridiculous viciousness and violence and murder. And I just don't understand how we sit back, how we allow people to treat us this way. And we show up, especially our men, by this is YouTube. I'm supposed to be being nice. I don't really care right now. We're supposed to what? Show up and fucking march that shit away? Let me guess. We're gonna bean pie sell that shit away. You gonna taekwondo it away? I don't know. You gonna get on your soapbox on the fucking corner and yell at the white people in a way? We look so fucking foolish in the shit that we do to say this is how we are fighting our enemy. You don't know your enemy, do you, baby? You don't understand fucking Hebrew Israelites and the Nation of Islam. You do not understand your enemy. You don't really understand the depravity and the depth and the evil and the shit that they will go to and no extent to get rid of your nigga ass in this country. We don't know our enemy. So this is why you think we're going to march. This is why you think.
Okay. So I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to go back to the part, where we started off. And then we're going to kind of break this down now. So there's some things that Miss Mechee X said that I totally agree with. Okay. I'm going to tell you now, my commentary is going to offend the Hebrew Israelites as well as the Muslim community and some Black community that is severely confused. Okay. Now, I know many of you thought that I was going to be in offense to what she says, but I agree with her 1,000,000,000%. Okay. Now, the first thing I do want to highlight, we have to clarify this. The word Hebrew Israelite is an oxymoron and it's not actually the representation of God's people according to the Bible. Okay. We're going to get into the Bible just a little bit, but I'm going to do it different than what people do. Okay. We're going to go over chapter to chapter. I'm going to give you just a brief breakdown so you can understand it. And I want you guys to contest my brief breakdown of the Old Testament. Okay. It's probably be just a little bit of time. You give me some time. Okay. And then we're going to go into how the Muslims affect us as Black people as well. Okay. Now let's just clarify that. So Hebrew Israelite is an oxymoron. This is a phrase that I believe that is made by our government to put us into a category to basically put us as terrorists. Okay. Now, myself being a Hebrew woman of the book, a bloodline of the book is much different. Okay. There is a time when our ancestor named Joseph, okay, his was elevated into Israel, okay, and this is where they take Hebrew and Israelite or Israel and put it together, and because they don't want to call us Israel, just Israel, because that name is occupied right now. And I don't want to break that down right now, but I did find the chapter. And when I get to that chapter of when the replacement tribes went in, okay? Okay, we're going to end off with that. Okay, so back to what Miss Mechee was saying. Now, there was a protest in Taylorsville in Mississippi. You got to understand that these are one of the most racist states in the United States. Okay, until this day, our people still suffer, and I'm talking about our people, me, you, Mechee, all of us, our people, because when they see us, they don't see, oh, you call yourself Muslim, you call yourself this, they see black skin. Okay, so we're going to say us in this particular situation, and the reason why I say us as well, because the people who believe in God, believe in love and freedom, we are part of the same until you realize it. Okay, now they went down there in March. Okay, they marched, and I will say the same respect goes to the alleged Hebrew Israelites for doing that, and it is beautiful to see them get together, because it's really hard for our community to just get together and do something uniformly and have things organized in a beautiful manner. But particularly what she said, you went down there and marched and went home. What was next? This is why myself, I love I like the concept of marching, because the visualization, and I know us as brown melanated people, we are visual people. We have to, have that to make it something, to make us move. That's understandable, but the movement comes after, with the paperwork, with the petitions, with you trying to construct a bill. I talked about this just last week. You can construct a bill. You, me, Mechee X, get people to support it. It depends on the state on how many signatures you're supposed to get it. Take it to your local representative and see, can they push it. This is it's easier said than done, but there's some things that can happen after the protest. So I really can't be mad at her. So that's on the foot of the people who are putting the protest together, and the people who are actually going there to be forward, to move forward. Okay, that's kind of like where I'm at with it. That's why I didn't really protest a lot out here. I did attend the Black Lives Matter protest, and I talked about that, and I saw the infiltration. But we're not even going to get into that. So in this particular situation, she talks about them coming down there, marching it, and she's calling it a waste of time and no change. But what I will say, and I will agree with, because when you listen to what she say later on, it was literally an incitement. It was an incitement for that community who allegedly is participating in the hunting games of black melanated men, allegedly, that's going on in Tyler, Mississippi. How about that? Okay. And I'm going to say allegedly because we have no proof right now. But this is the things that we should be talking about, the black community, instead of chase and tell all the time between, celebrity gossip and things. The things that actually apply to us, that's the things that I'm going to put out there. Okay. So next, she it's a inclination, because this is what we do. This is what we do in the black community. When someone don't agree with what we say, they are anti us, they hate us, they shouldn't be with us. Well, we don't really have too many people on our side, period. So it is actually contraindicated for us as black people to be ready to exclude people of the same brown skin if we have the same agenda and being treated the same way. Does that make sense? So in my heart, I don't believe that Miss Mechee X hates Israelites or Hebrew Israelites, the oxymoron that people don't understand. We're going to highlight that. But I do believe that she's not beat for the BS. Just like me as a Hebrew woman, I'm going to be honest. Let me give you an example. When I had to do my letter of exemption for the Jenka, and they told me, "Oh, yeah, you got a letter from your religious organization." I had to say, "Ho, wait a minute." First and foremost, I don't participate in any religious organization. This is a nationality, and according to the Bible, I pulled out some scriptures about not taking medicine when you ain't sick. When you're not sick, and some other things to back it up. But I specifically said that my practice is the practice that I practice and follow the Bible. And when it went as far as, because at that time they were being so like with the exemptions, that these people had to talk to me. And I had to explain a little bit more. So I explained to them how I participate and how I practice my actual nationality, and that's definitely with living holistic as possible, even though that's very hard because we got poison and everything and forever chemicals. That's for another live. But just try to live holistic as possible, preventative in the things that I'm doing, and don't take medicine that I don't need. As far as religious organization, it's hard for me as a brown melanated Hebrew woman to even say that I participate in the organization, because our brown Hebrew, allegedly, what they call themselves, Hebrew Israelite men, are toxic. To me, that is the epitome of a lot of them. The camps are full with the epitome of toxic masculinity, the real meaning of toxic masculinity, the suppression of woman, the suppression of knowledge, the suppression of being. Okay? So this is why it's even hard for me as a brown melanated woman that knows the book and know what I'm supposed to do to even feng shui with the people who we're supposed to be part of the same. Okay, so I can't even be mad at her, because if I don't want to deal with it, why would she? Why would she? You see what I'm saying? But God be the glory. I will say that it is a blessing that she do have men who consider themselves Hebrew men, that shows honor and respect to all women. Because as people of the book, this is our job. We are supposed to lead by example and lead by love and honor. Okay, honor one another. And this is when we go into each chapter, after I go into the chapter, after I do my reaction, this is our problem. We don't honor each other, and we're living in a mindset of Babylon where we're following everything else and we're confused consistently. We're consistently confused. That's why I say when you actually read the Bible like a book and know that it's stories and then it makes sense, you're going to be like, yo, this is ridiculous. Almost every single chapter of the old chapter is saying the same thing. I'm like, yo, this is a repeat, but it's literally us because we keep repeating the division, the separation. Okay. All right. So moving forward, because I got to get in on this conversation. Y'all not about to call Mechee X all of this nonsense. And I respect the fact that she stands for herself and don't even care. But I'm definitely going to get in as a Hebrew woman, a woman that practice. I practice abstinence. Yes, I do. I learned my position. I don't go where the heathens go. I try not to. I'm not perfect. You see the tattoo on me. I know I ain't perfect. Y'all hear me drop them bombs and curses, but I try. Okay, so coming from a woman of this perspective, that is not many of us out here, this is what we're going to talk about today. So now what she went on to, that is basically us as Hebrews, or allegedly Hebrew Israelites, to correct the extremists in our community. And that's what we have to do. There are extremists in our community that's misrepresenting the concept of this book. Look at my old book. Of this book, tore it up. Look at the binding. Okay, misrepresenting the concept of this book just by way of saying, "Oh, I'm a bloodline," and you can't even prove it. Half of y'all can't even prove it. That's why it's obsolete for you to even have that argument. Because if you read the whole book, we all have a way to the covenant of God. Because we're living amongst fucking heathens. We're in Babylon. We're in hell. And that's real. Okay? Now, Ms. Mechee X, I want to say I love you and I respect your stance. Now, she went on to talk about how we ain't going to march our way out. Then she went into talking about the Muslims, okay? Islam. So what I'm going to share with you, so I won't just get into, I'm going to share some facts. Okay. I have a video that I'm going to put on this live that you're going to watch. It's a 45-minute video, and then I'm going to upload it on Rumble under Urban Politics separately. But this talks about the actual Arab slave trade and how it played a major part prior to then the Western slave trade. Okay. And how it's been hidden from our people. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So all of this misrepresentation of who we are, these are some of the things that I actually want to address as well, because we confused by all of these titles, and we still have a degraded heart. How can I say that? I'm trying to say it nicely. I'm trying to say it the right way. But my pronunciation we have a disintegrated heart. We disintegrated as a people. We're disintegrated within our soul and our behavior, and you know it. And this is why Mechee X and the other people are going place to place to figure out why our people are allegedly being hunted and being hanged in 2023. Okay? Okay? And they're acting like it's not happening while we're being distracted with other things. Okay? Let Mechee get finished to what she's saying. I think I rewinded a little bit. I want to move forward, because I have to say respect is due where it goes. Okay? And another thing, before she start talking, hold on.
You don't live near Taylor.
Okay, hold on. Let's get to it, because I think I stopped at 35.
You gonna get on your soapbox on the fucking?
Okay, that's where we stop. Now, one more thing, what I will say, Mechee, respect to you, where respect due, because you are mixed. You are a mixed person, which, according to the book, you have Gentile blood in you, which is fine, because at the end of the day, the Gentiles a lot of them are part of the actual Shem bloodline, from what I understand. They are not the chosen people, and they are part of Edom, okay? But they do have a bloodline. And even if they do or they don't have a bloodline, it's about the heart of the person. So for us, now, I'm going to say this. When I see them little Hebrew videos of them dudes out there just saying stuff, like banging on them, it made me feel a little good. I get a little excited, like, especially if I'm, like I said, I'm having a bad day, and they be like, yeah. But when they, say, like, you're going to be my slave, this is what the Bible said, it makes me cringe. Not because I'm a white people lover, Gentile lover. It makes me cringe because it's hate. It's like at the end of the day, I know God for hated people and things like that, but he did. I believe that God wants us to love. Okay, not defend ourselves, not be strong warriors, not stand on honor, not none of that. But I think he wants us to love before we hate. So if we do have a nation that's going to be in servitude to us, I would not want to be like that towards them, according to the book. So that really turns me off too, where you will say that to Mechee, where when the book is fulfilled, you're going to be beneath us. I'm going to put my foot on your head. You're going to be my slave. You think you're going to be blessed? You sound just like your oppressors. We are not to be like our oppressors. We are not to be like them. We are to be the people of the book. We are supposed to be the chosen people to teach and lead and be the prophets, all of us, in our own way to the other nations. That's not being a prophet and a leader. So that's how I feel about the Hebrew Israelites. I'm just going to keep it real, because that's an oxymoron. According to the book, we are Hebrews, original bloodline, and we are Israel. Now, if you're afraid to call yourself Israel because we have people in that position allegedly pretending to be us and causing war and hate and all this stuff, then that's something you have to deal with your God. Okay, let's finish listening to what my sister Mechee got to say.
And yell at the white people in a way.
That's what we're gonna do.
We look so fucking foolish in the shit that we do.
Yes, we do.
Say this is how we are fighting our enemy. You don't know your enemy, do you, baby? You don't understand fucking Hebrew Israelites and the Nation of Islam, you do not understand your enemy. You don't really understand the depravity and the depth and the evil and the shit that they will go to and no extent to get rid of your nigga ass in this country. We don't know our enemy. So this is why you think you're gonna march you. This is why you think you're gonna show up to a town. Let me tell you something. Now I don't mean to be any disregarding to what they did for Rashid Carter. The Hebrew Israelites showed up and they came down there, right? And they marched through Taylorsville. But then I give you a real reality. All those black men came through their town. They pissed them white folks off. Boy, if you seen it, people documented, they was on the air talking about why don't they go get a job? Why are they here? Like the white people was pulling over, being mad, honking their horns and talking shit, right? But this is the thing. Hear me out. Hear me out. They marched and they left. They marched and they left. Do you want to know what the Hebrew Israelites actually did by going there to march? They pissed off the white people. The white people that you will not check. The white people that you will not give them the same force of brutality that they give you, right? You pissed them off. You don't have to live in Mississippi, baby. You don't live near Taylorsville. You came in, you marched, you pissed off the white folks. The white folks who live in the town, where just about everybody in the town is in on the evil secret that we kidnap young black men and we put them in the woods and we hunt them for sport. You pissed off that town of people. Now you're going to go home. You don't think that your vicious enemy, they don't march for shit. You don't think that they're not going to get their revenge? You pissed them off. You brought your nigga ass through their town. You walked around here like you were so tough. Yeah. Why don't we catch 4 niggers this week and not 2? The next time we get one in our hands, how about we take out the anger that we felt? They want to come through our town. All they're going to do is go hunt and take out what you did on black men who live in Mississippi, that you don't live in Mississippi. You're not there to fight that fight every day. I'm sorry to tell you, but the reality is they fucking made it worse for black people who live in that area. They didn't make it better by bringing your ass in a town and marching and getting the fuck on a plane and going home.
And I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to say I have to agree with Mechee. Okay? Because at the end of the day, we have to be realistic of what we're dealing with. And black people, we will never fight fire with fire that these people give us. I'm going to be honest. And if I have white people on Rumble watching, realize this, and I know you realize this. That's why you take advantage of us as black people, because we have a soul. Not to say that you don't. I don't know what happens. It's on off till you find Jesus Christ. But we have something soft in us that makes us not want to even fight you until we have to. After all of that, after all of what we're going to go over later on in the future, and literally the suppression of us continuously. We're not going to kill you. We're not going to hang you from trees. Even if the black Israelites go out and you like, okay, even if the black Israelites, like what they say is come to fruition, that God, Jesus Christ come down, because they don't even say Jesus Christ, but actually that's what Revelation say, comes down and shut everything down, and we, the people who believe in him, are going to have the kingdom, and the people who live by the sword is going to die by the sword. Even if that day to come, because we will be filled with so much light and love, we're not going to do that. That is not what the book actually says. We're never going to do that because we don't have a heart. But that does not mean that we're not going to defend ourselves. That does not mean that we don't have Mechee X's and Grace Levi's that don't play. That stands it's our life or death, because we have bloodlines here that needs to survive. We have covenants here just like you. And just because we choose not to go after you for no reason doesn't mean that us as brown melanated people will never fight. But we're just not going to do it demonically the way that you do it. And that's to the people who are doing it. To the people who are not, because we have Christian, Anglo-Saxon, and I'm going to remove Mechee off the screen because I love my sister. Shout out to Mechee X for even having this conversation, to allow me to just say, you know what, let me just switch the tone. It's time. You're going to take it or leave it, love it or not. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. Even when I'm talking on celebrity gossip and things, it's just going to be 100% real and come from my God consciousness. A lot of this is literally stemmed from our behavior as brown melanated people. And there's within the book, God gave them, the creator in this book gave them the A-OK to be over us because of all of our sins, continuously asking to be part of other nations, asking for have kings, have people over us, because we were such a lost people from the day we left. Okay, so let's get into it a little bit. We 29 minutes in. Hopefully I can go over just the first half of the Bible. Yes. And I'm not doing quotes. I'm not going to say Leviticus 2:3. What I need y'all to do is, when I summarize these chapters, is go back and read the chapter like a book. Okay, don't go to your pastor and say, does this? No, read it yourself like a book so you can realize, because at the end of the book, it's for all of us to find our way to God. But originally, the Old Testament was literally about us, a lost people, and all of the heathen nations, and all of their idolism, all of their sacrificing of children, murders, the kings of this world. So let's get it, because our next, after I do this, I'm going to do a short breakdown. Then I'm going to play the video to show where it's going to be two Gentiles. You call them Edom, or you know them as white people. They're going to break down the Arab slave trade to you guys, okay? Because I have a few videos about that, but I was like, which one would be the best to catch your attention? But I think if I have white guys talking about it, to let y'all know how miseducated we are as a people, then it's going to make a little bit more sense to you. So just a summary. Y'all know in Exodus actually took place in or around the land of Africa, right? So Moses and these people couldn't be white. It just don't make logical sense. Let's just start with logic, okay? But that Exodus that you see, the same Egypt that you learn in social studies, is the same Egypt that they talk about in Exodus, okay? And that is us who were released from God, glory, from out of Exodus via the things that Moses done. Now, we ain't gonna get into detail. You already know about the plagues that happened in Egypt. The king didn't want to let us go. His heart got hardened. We left. Moses, with the faith and the belief in the Most High Yah, was able to split the Red Sea, do all types of stuff. And I also have videos that show archaeological proof that the white people did, because we couldn't go over there and do it, but the white people could. And I got the proof. Okay, we're going to show y'all that the Exodus, the splitting of the sea, all of that has been found with evidence. Okay, so these things, this is what really brought this book to life for me, and I hope it brings it to life for you. But what ended up happening in Exodus, guess what happened in Exodus? Just like how we are stubborn like a mule, the people who were free from bondage and slavery, they complained the whole way. And I don't got food. I'm tired. I'm this. We should have just left us in Egypt. They were treating us. We had food. Yup. More than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. So much that God got peed off when Moses went to the mountain to get our actual 10 commandments. And when he came down, I think that was that, hold up. Yeah, we were worshiping the golden calf. We were so wanting something physically to worship Black people. If you call yourself the people who are lost, if you don't know your heritage, if you don't know who you are, if you know who you are, you're like, I'm from Africa, my bloodline here, this, that, and the third. This is not for you. This is for lost people. Okay? You can find yourself in this book. Okay? We wanted to worship the golden calf. Peed off with us. You know what God said? He said, kill them. God said, kill them all. They literally disrespected me. This is the God. This is the God that I'm reading about. He plays no games with disrespect, lies, greed, envy. It is a little bit more. So we started there. Let's move on to Leviticus. I told you I'm gonna make this short. We're not about to do all that. Go and read Exodus and tell me if I'm lying. Let's get into Leviticus. God, basically, in this particular time as well, Moses asked for the people to basically not participate in anything that they have learned from Egypt, to let it go. He wanted to go into the 7 holy days in the presence of the 7 holy days to bring down the Holy Spirit. Okay, because let's highlight this. I'm gonna highlight this. The reason why I say this is because in this particular time, this was after the flood. What happened before the flood? What happened before the flood? Do you know? We had the fallen angels. Oh, that's not real. It's in the book. It's there. And they mixed breed with a certain people. And some of those people were Edom. When you went into the mountains, you, Edom, mixed with the fallen angels, made hybrid humans, and basically had to be flooded. Okay? We had no presence of God on the earth. God was looking for the most holiest person he could find, and that's why he had found who built the ark. Noah, the most holiest drunk he found, but he know Noah had an interest of love in his heart, and not as corrupted. Noah was a drunk. Did you know that? That's why I say nobody is perfect. Nobody in this book was perfect. So I'm not coming from a perfect perspective, but I'm coming from real. So good. Cool. I ain't even gonna go back into that. But remember what happened. So those same beings, some of them made them in the marine kingdom. And that's why we have some of these spirits still walking around here. That's a whole nother topic when we talk about the marine kingdom. Oh, yeah, I know a lot about this. But let's keep it to the book. What he wanted us to do is not worship anything idol. Be the holy, pure, and moral people of the world, to be his prophets. Okay. That was what God wanted us to do in Leviticus. Okay. He wanted us to practice certain ways so we can embody the Holy Spirit. And anybody who ever embodied the Holy Spirit know what I'm talking about. No, it ain't no religious stuff. When you ever been broken down so much and you say, God, come and save me. Somebody save me. My life is over. And you get this feeling in you of peace. You don't know that. Y'all probably haven't been destroyed like that. That's God that you don't know, my Black people. Not about to cry. Move on. Leviticus. Let's get to Numbers. Numbers will help people, our people of Israel, specifically, start to understand the numbers of the tribes, of the names. These names goes down and down and down, and family lineage is not easy to follow. But we have prominent teachers that I call in our community that I feel that is filled with holiness, not perfect, but holiness, and have good information, like Benai Israel, welcome to YouTube. Welcome to Rumble. Thank you, God, you're here. So I won't be the only Hebrew here. Thank you. I love you. As well as Ron Dalton. I please tell him to come out here on Rumble and speak freely. But they have Ron Dalton have a book that goes deep into genealogy, DNA. Bump all that stuff. What they talking about? Anti-Semitic. We talking about science. All I want is the science. I don't care what they talking about, how they feel. I need proof. You got Benai Israel making documentaries after documentaries, hidden Hebrews. Watch his series in cartoon forms, whatever he could do to bring this to life to you. Books and numbers, what you can go back there and use these people commentary and the things that they have put together and make it make sense for you. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying this because these tools, these other people of our nation that have their skills, they help us learn on our own. Okay? So numbers, go back to numbers. That's when we were still in the wilderness. He was numbering the people. You know, we were still out there complaining, acting all crazy. Hold on. I'm just kind of summing it up. Israel wanted to go back to Egypt at this time. Like, I gotta go back because we don't have no meat, this, that, and the third. And I think this was the time that he actually made it snow. Like they made it snow some type of like wheat or something. Okay. I want y'all to go in there and go read it yourself. Okay. This is all in the Bible. So at this time, again, God told Moses, kill them people. Yep. Because they don't honor me. That's how serious he is. Y'all over here playing around, living in this world. And that's for the people who are not just brown melanated, the people of the book feel like you're not. The end goal is for everybody to get to God when you get to the end of the Bible. He wants everyone to be under the covenant of Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, for him to make us one so we can beat this Antichrist. Okay? But what he don't want us to do is worship their BS. Okay, so go into Numbers, y'all, and look at all of those bloodlines. As we go on, we're gonna go break down each book one by one, but I'm kind of breaking it down. Deuteronomy. This is when God said, I'm tired of y'all complaining. Hebrews. All you do is complain. Israel. I'm telling you now, there's some curses that's going to be put on you if you don't get it together. But until then, I'm going to lay down some laws. In Deuteronomy, he lays down the second set of laws, okay? And there, these laws teach us how to worship. This laws at that time, he talks about donations. And donation doesn't only have to be monetary, but you have to give back of what he gives you. And he highlights specifically in Deuteronomy, something is wrong with the heart of Israel. They dead in their heart. You go ahead, Hebrew Israelites. Did y'all read that? You're acting the same way. You're dead. He's like, yo, something ain't right with them. Okay. Book of Joshua. Let's move forward. Post Moses' death. Moses died. Guess what happened? The people never made it to the promised land. Something that was supposed to take them 3 to 4 days end up being how many years? Over 40 years? Because God said, I will not let y'all into the Holy Land because y'all some ungrateful asses. Remember, the Holy Land was Canaan. Canaan is known as Israel right now. And I want to just throw this in there. Canaan was inhabited at that time by the Hittites. And they were from Ham, not Shem. And you remember when they got to actually going to look at Canaan and they talked about it, the Israelites was like, yo, they big, they giants. This was telling you that the giants was still here after the flood. It's like they giants. What we about to do? We grasshoppers. And they were Hittites. They were black. Those were the black Africans. I found some pictures of these black African giants. We're different from Africans. We're different from them, the people who were sold in the beginning. Now, I have to explain this because Hebrew Israelites think that's the end all tell all. We the chosen people and that's it. No, it's a whole lot after that. We done messed up so damn much, baby. We barely even talked about, allegedly, towards the end. Barely. He won us all. He won every nation. He said, "Look, but y'all need to come and get your shit together." But don't. That's what I'm a lower your britches a little bit, Hebrew Israelite, sitting on that damn corner like you so damn special when we all here living messed up. Book of Joshua, post Moses' death. This is the person who took over after Moses. We're still roaming around, never not able to enter the Holy Land, which is Canaan, which is known as Israel now. But before we move over to the book of Joshua, where they just basically give us the first Passover. You know, that's where we celebrate the first Passover. At this time, there's a big section of the Bible that's missing. Okay, big section. And this big section is allegedly, and I'm going to say allegedly, known as the book of Japheth. Jasher. I do apologize. Book of, hello. Yeah, I think it's the book of Jasher. Yeah, the book of Jasher. Now, when you read the book of Jasher, this is the story of Israel tribes from Egypt all the way until they get to the promised land. Okay. This is, I think, I'm trying to remember because it's probably like when you listen to the audio book, it's probably like a 20-hour listen because the book of Jasher is hard to find, the real one. But when you listen to the stories, it's us traveling for all them 40 years, confused, fighting nations. But in all of that confusion, all of that defiance, when you read the book of Jasher, it makes you understand why all other nations hate Black people. Go listen to that book and tell me why I'm lying. If I'm lying, this is why all the other nations hate Black people, because once we left Egypt, we were working our magic, the magic of the Most High. We didn't do voodoo. We didn't do magic like Egypt did and all those other nations that was worshiping pagan God. All we had to do was just believe it and pray and obey. And we were going through nations, knocking kings down. If you really go into the book of Jasher, they made a covenant amongst the kings in an edict to kill us, to wipe us off the face of the earth, because they could not understand how our God was defeating them. So the only way that they could literally defeat us was for us to curse us. And that's in the book. And that's all we've been doing is cursing ourselves. Cursing ourselves. They can't really do nothing to us that we don't do. We participate in their system. We're begging them to breathe. And all we have to do literally is separate. It's really simple. But we don't have the discipline. We don't have the mindset. We don't have the courage to do so. We want to be like Tom, Dick, and Harry, and we can't even compete because we're not even part of them. They will never let us be part of them. Never. The mission is to destroy the bloodline. And this goes further than just a color. It's not about a color. It's a bloodline. It's DNA. Some of Shem still got the pure DNA because y'all didn't mess up too much. God trying to find a pure DNA at this damn point because everybody done, participated. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Remember that. It's in the book. Back to the book of Joshua. So again, that's God's battle. It was God's battle against the Canaanites. And that's when we went into Canaan, finally. And Canaan, remember, was these big, large, looking like fallen angels. But when you do your research, it was the Hamites. The Hamites are from Ham, from the Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Okay? Past the flood. So Ham was doing something with them damn fallen angels or something too, allegedly. Because I got the pictures we're going to go into. I think we're going to go into it on a conspiracy night. I got some pictures to show y'all. Okay? Big black giants, looking like big black African giants. Okay. All right, let's move on because I think I got 10 minutes to try to break down some of this. Judges, again, Judges was a very disturbing set of stories, and this highlights basically the terrible tribes of the terrible kings that were put over our tribes. And there's more actual sections of the Bibles that goes over that, because we kept begging for kings. We kept begging for somebody to be over us because we can't even think or be connected to God. So in those kingdom ships that y'all can read for yourself and prove me that I'm wrong, because I'm not about to throw out, oh, Judges 1, 2, 3. No, we about to talk about the whole story because I read it like a book, like it was supposed to be read. Again, he highlight the moral corruptions that was going on with Israel kings that was equivalent to Canaan, because we never killed all the Canaanites like God told us to. So we end up interbreeding with them. We end up acting like them. We end up doing what they were doing. Instead of coming there being prophets and leaders, we just fucking up all around the way, Israel. Or allegedly Hebrew Israelites that know this book, that's teaching everybody this book, but ain't reading it like a story, using it the same way that Christians use it and other people use it for suppression. Can I move forward? Can I get an amen? Are we at church today? All right, let's move forward. All right, so we went from bad to worse kings in Judges. I need you guys to go in. It was corruption on top of corruption. Israel adopted the Canaanite lifestyle of increased sin, increasing the consequence of Israel. Unfavoritism alive. Okay, that's what was going on in Judges. We kept asking, Ma. Now, to the Israelites that say, oh, it's just a pure bloodline. It's just a pure bloodline. Nobody else. But read the damn book of Ruth. Because in Ruth, specifically in Ruth, this was the incorporation. I think this is a Canaanite woman. If I'm not mistaken, please correct me. Who was married to a Hebrew man, and that was killed. And she ended up going with his mother back to our land, Ruth, leaving her people because Ruth was allegedly a high priestess. I'm like, yo, God, what's up? I'm reading this like, yo, Ruth was a high priestess. She was blessed. She was blessed in the end. And that proves that the blessing don't just go with bloodline. He wants the bloodline to continue because she married an Israelite man, or I'm saying you use the right terms to continue the bloodline. But Ruth was incorporated. How about that? So what that say? Hebrew Israelites to say everybody but us. That's a dag. But you live by this book, so Ruth don't count. Because I was like, wait, enemy, God, let Ruth up in this. Just why he tell us this story in Ruth? What? Incorporating, but he didn't want us to incorporate with heathens. He wanted us to incorporate with people who submit themselves to him, to his covenant, to the rules at that time of the Torah, or that time, or the 10 Commandments, whatever you see fit. Am I lying? Do I sound like I'm off, y'all? Samuel 1. Okay. This is when King David was originated. It was King Saul, and then it was King David. Okay. So here, basically, this is when the ark was stolen from Israel as well in the many battles. And God allowed that to happen because we were still messing up, not listening, stealing stuff, doing stuff like he'll have us battle and say burn everything, then we'll try to keep some of the gold. Just be stupid. Like, yo, this invisible strong spirit is just blessing us, wiping out kings without us even having to do something. Talking about a boulder rolling over a king fall back, bust his head, die, have a heart attack just before we about to go to war. You gonna sit there and do this? So that book, the people in the book of Israel, they sound more like us, black people, than actually the ones that's out there. No, actually, no. I'm be honest. The way the ones that's out there acting now, they got me like Jesus. They fit the synagogue of Satan. They allegedly. All right. So here, the ark was sent back because what God got for us will be for us, even when we fuck it up. We be dead wrong, messing up. He still blesses us in the pits of hell. Sent it back because they was being cursed. That's what I say. Anything for us is gonna that don't go to you is gonna be cursed. That's why I'm not worried about what the other nations are doing. Even if we're the lowest nation in the world right now and we live below the poverty line, we're still living, we're still thriving. We still can have that joy that they pretend they had. We all miserable, actually. How about that? We all pretending. How about that? No matter what nation of people you are, how about that? All right. So at this time we had Saul the king. And yes, he was part of us, Israel, one of the tribes. Like, nah, David, you can't be king. Because I'm so greedy. I don't care. I know God chose you, but you was just after David on this. Every time, get him killed, get him killed, get him. And every time David out swindled him. Prayed on it. And every time that David had the chance to kill Saul, guess what David didn't do? He didn't kill Saul. Because that's us. It sound like us black people. We've been the same damn way in the Bible. We had a right. We have the right to fight back. We have the right to kill them. We had the opportunity, and we don't. Sounds familiar. I was reading that like, dang, yo, that's just like us. Are we weak? Nah, but God chose us to be his people because we have the heart that he needs. We don't, it's dead right now. We the dry, dead bones. It's dead, but we still got that heart. All right, so Book of Kings. We move back post David. All right. Did I go over the Book of Kings already? Hold on. I went into Book of, okay, so Book of Kings. Again, they went into the bad kings that's behind after Solomon. Everybody talk about how good Solomon, Rastafari. We the same people. You worship in the same bloodline in this Bible that I'm connecting right now to the Egyptian slave trade and the Egyptian Exodus. Yeah, you see how it makes sense? Rastafari, Jamaican. Ha ha ha. How about that? King Solomon was corrupt. And I say it, he had power, strong. His hair, his locks. But he was weak because of woman, because of sex. Yep. This broad didn't even like him. When you read it, you will be like, yo, is Solomon stupid? The broad don't like you. She keep asking you what's your strength so she could do it. And every time you kind of tell her something that's not the strength, she try to come set you up. And then you figure it out and then you still with her. Sounds like a dumb black man to me. You can't see through the others, but you can see through the people who that's you. Because that lady who was doing that, what was her name? Who he married? Hold on, I'm trying to get back to who is she? She was like from Babel. I think she was like the queen of Babel or something like that. But I know she wasn't of our tribe. He was infatuated with her. He lost his whole life. He lost everything behind it. Sounds about right, Black America. Giving all your riches back, all your gold back to the others when you get big. Go read the Book of Kings when they talk about Solomon and Israel fight. Also talks about Solomon's story, his inner war. Okay. Yeah, let's move on. There's a lot more with that, but we just trying to give you some highlights because I wanted to do this in 30 minutes. Chronicles 1 and 2, repeat content. Literally repeat content of everything. Like, okay, we back at Chronicles. Chronicles mean let's get back to the chapters. This what you did. This was going on. You keep doing this. This is how you thinking. You got a corrupt heart. I gave you kings. The kings were corrupted. You're not living in love. You're not living in holiness. Same thing repeated again. Okay. Now, right here, the name of the key families that were in the line of Judah is found in Chronicles as well. So you need to go there because you'll be able to track the line of Judah to David and up to the current priesthood. Okay. All right. Yeah. Does that make sense? So go to Chronicles 1 and 2, and you'll be able to start to research that, the bloodlines as well, because numbers is just names, 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 names. This breaks it down a little bit more. Now, let's see, because they talk about King David being Moses like, because we still asking for leaders, and the ones that are leaders, we're playing them. We're really not listening to them like we always do. Like people will see me and be like, I ain't listening to her because she corny. Yeah, because she ain't saying what I want her to say, but I'm saying the things that cut you. The real that cut your soul because you won't survive. They want you to die thinking like this, being like this. All right. So let's move on. That's Chronicle 1 and 2. I think this is where the start of the New Testament goes on. And this is Eza and Hema. Okay. Now let me see if it's something that I really want to get into here, because what I'm gonna end up doing is stopping. And then I want to get into just a few other things. This is Esther. Let me see if there's anything important today, because I think I hit y'all in your heart real quick, but just with the first few books of the Bible that y'all didn't know that was actually books and stories. I'm not a Bible pusher. I'm just a reader of stories and trying to figure out who I am. Trying to figure out what's going on here. Why we so lost? Why we so played? Why we don't own nothing? Why we have single parent household? Why is this normal for us to destroy each other? Why are we choosing groups and sections and we're still divided out of all the nations and we still don't have anything? Why are our souls literally degraded right now as Black people? And we're following what all the rest of them do, but we know that we're not even benefiting on, I'm talking about like on a carnal way. You're selling your soul and you're not benefiting. Look at the stars. They're coming for them one by one, like they always do. They put you out there just as a little bit token, and then you talk too much, you do too much, you're done. All right, so I think I'm gonna stop right there as far as going testament to testament. One thing I will say that really stood out to me when I went into Peter, the book of Peter, like the New Testament, because at first I wasn't gonna read the New Testament. I said, nah, I ain't gonna be like no Hebrew Israelite and just read the first Old Testament. Like that's all that applies to me. The New Testament is for the Christians, because the Christians, all y'all asses do, excuse my language. Oh God, I'm in front of the Bible. The Christians, all you do, guys, allegedly, is just read the New Testament. And all you know is about Jesus Christ and the covenant for everyone. And that's why you don't love or respect Black people, the ones who are the original branch of the tree. And he needs us, not only just you guys, but it needs our pure blood and pure heart of Judah to cry out, because we're all going to go through something so bad in Revelations. It ain't going to be just Black people, white people, brown people. Everybody is going to be affected by the evilness that's taken over. And you know this, even if you don't believe in the book. You know evil is taking over. You know AI is taking over allegedly, right? They be talking about the beast. Even if you didn't read the Bible, you know about the mark of the beast. Okay? So that's the reality of it. We're all without no paddle, but I will have to fix the heart of my people. Now, this is what I want to just get into real quick, because the people who are pretending to be us, I had to figure out how did they get in this position. Now I knew we had a trade of us where we were exiled out of many countries, many, like they were doing us dirty. They kept selling us. And you know why we started to lose a lot of the battles? Because we were falling out the covenant of God. We wasn't following God. We wasn't following him. We was really acting crazy. Read the book of Japheth. We were bugging. And God just said, I curse y'all. I'm tired. I cut off the original branch. And that's why they laugh at us. because they know that we're cut off and they think that we are the ones that's never, like, we're never going to figure this out. So this is what it is. Now this is where I'm going to give y'all, let's get it. Now I can just give y'all some numbers because the Spirit gave me this before I got here. The first apostle general of Peter. Now, in the New Testament, you have Peter going around literally writing letters to all of these churches that he created and trying to keep them balanced based on the original principles of Jesus Christ. Okay. Now, at this point, they said that one point Peter was a sellout, but then Peter changed his whole life over to Jesus Christ, and he was one of the main disciples that was able to allegedly do this whole second part of the book. And that's why Hebrew Israelites don't respect that book, because they say that it is Peter who was born like a Roman Gentile, allegedly, and that they don't respect it. That's where the Hebrew Israelites get lost. But specifically in this book of Peter, I think when he was writing this letter, there was a certain group of people he wrote the letter to, talking about the apostle Jesus Christ and holding the covenant of the church. And this was like Peter 1:1. So he said that he wrote a letter to the scattered strangers throughout Asia. Okay. Specifically, it says Cappadocia, and I want y'all to look at that. Peter 1:1 in Asia. It's Asia Minor. Asia Minor is right between Asia and Russia, into those mountains. And in this particular book, Peter, the letter that he wrote to them, he said something that was so significant. And I'm like, okay, it makes sense why we have allegedly the Ashkenazi Jew, because that's their area. They want that land back, allegedly, where Russia now controls. And this is why we have these wars going on, because they want to take that land back, because they say, well, we migrated, because specifically here in Peter, he talks about them migrating out of that area. Come out of that area as the people, just like the people of Egypt, hold the covenant of God and be priests. Let's get into it. It says Peter 1:9, but ye are chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, peculiar people, that you should sow forth in the praise of him who call you out of darkness into the marvel light. This was not us. This wasn't the original people who were cast out. This was the people in Asia Minor, and when Jesus, those 7 churches were set up. See, y'all, that's where the Hebrew Israelites get lost. And that's where Ron Dalton went in and filled it in for you guys, because y'all didn't want to read that. So that's where they took the mentality like, whoa, we're going to migrate out. We're the chosen people now. This was way past Exodus. Peter is towards the end of the Bible, just before John and Revelations. So it can't be the same Exodus. I read it like a story. I said, wait, what? Okay. Now let's get into Peter 1:12. Have your conversations honestly among the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may be your own good works, which they shall behold glorify God in the days of visitation. So he tells them to go preach to the Gentiles. He wasn't talking about us. We've been sold out. We got cast out. We got sold. I'm gonna tell you what chapter we got sold out. Oh, we got sold out a while ago, y'all. Okay. So those people took it as them being the new servants of God. Let's get into Peter 1:18. I just got two more to show you, because I really didn't want to get into one by one, because I did the whole story type thing for y'all. And y'all could please tell me I'm lying. Please tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Please, even to the Hebrew Israelites. I don't want to argue and debate with you if you ain't working with the Spirit of the Most High Yah, and you think you're going to yell people to straighten this. It's not going to work. So Peter 1:18, servants, be subjected to your masters, but be fair, not only to good and be Gentile, but also to the forward. Now, right there, that's where I can understand where people get a little confused, because it seems like God supports servitude. It says servants, not slaves, because y'all, they say slaves in the book. That's the correction, servants. In Haiti to this day, we have people who are house cleaners. They're servants. My grandma, when she go to Haiti, she have a servant right now. And we never treated Miss Molly bad. She eat with us. She cook for us. We do stuff. That's her job. We pay her. She go to her family. That was a servant. That's what a servant was. God had to redefine to y'all. So don't let them lie to you. They say that God, that's what makes black people don't like the Bible, because he's like, yeah, God said you can have slaves. It says servants. Servants is different from slaves. We can pull up the definition of slaves versus servant. That's why they want to put servitude in the education system in Florida to replace that word. So just remember that God doesn't support slavery or self-inflicted slavery that we're doing to ourselves. And last but not least, that I will share on here, and then I'm going to share that video I want to share with you guys highlighting the Arab slave trade, because now I got to get on my Muslims. Baby, I done rolled the wheel on Hebrews. And I'm a Hebrew sister. Now I'm about to let you Muslims know your role in our slave trade, and that we know that we're not you, and we know the trickery. I'm just gonna be honest. I don't hate all Muslims. I don't hate nobody, but I know what I see. Last little quote. Peter 1:8-21. Forever her unto where ye calls, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that ye should follow his steps. What did Christ do? And the Hebrews don't talk about Christ. Y'all don't talk about Jesus Christ. Oh, because the J wasn't there. Listen, I don't care which way you interpret the J, Jesus, Jesus, Yahshua, whatever you want to call you from another country, that the Holy Spirit knows his name. You call me Grace, Gracia, Graceana, Grace Havana. You calling me Grace. Whatever. I know my name and I will respond. So yeah. Now, I hope that broke down some stuff for you guys. I want to say thank you to the Holy Spirit for letting me be able to review my Bible for the 4th time. And I'm going to go back in for the 5th time and now read each chapter again and summarize it in detail for you guys, because I read it, I summarized key things, but I need to go back, so I can compare it to some of these things that people are putting out there. This is what you should do. God said you should have your own discernment. That's why you would see in the book that no king, no leaders worked for us. You can have people who teach you good things. I love my Pastor Darby. You see, I'm a Hebrew talking about Pastor Darby. He a Christian pastor before he died. I respect that man. You see what I'm saying? The one that I show you is another gentleman, and he called himself Israel, and he's Caucasian. He like a Gentile. And at first I kept saying, why he keep calling himself Israel? He's white. In my head, he white, but what he talking is that work. I may show you his too today, because it's 2:00 and I could run this for a little while. I need to definitely be offline by 3:30 because I got to rest. But what I'm going to do is show you this video of Caucasian people talking about how us as Black people really need to get it together and know that Muslims had us enslaved. He said, yo, I'm not about to play with y'all. He like, yo, y'all not going to keep blaming me. I was like, oh, you want to talk. So I was like, okay, let me find a video. Hold on one second. Bear with me because I really had to do some hunting, and God be the glory. I found it. I was like, one week I was looking for this, and I was like, yo, I erased every single thing from the Black Discovery Channel, and I was frustrated. I just left it and said, whatever. In my archives, I have videos that highlight the Moors who helped sell us as slaves. I have information about the NAACP founders. and their actual agenda. I have information about the Rothschilds. I have information about Israel and Egypt. But we're gonna do this one. I think this is the archaeological. Just shut up. I said it like that. But this is the proof. Okay, just shut your mouth. I said it like that. Is this it? No. Okay, no, I'm not gonna put that one on for you because that one probably put y'all to sleep because y'all not ready yet. Hold on. Hold on. Black people with real damaging TV, Israel. Hold on. Give me 1 second, y'all. Hold on. Egyptian officially called Africans. I had it up, but I had to put the Mechee thing. So give me 1 second. I'm about to put a little commercial break on for y'all. Bear with me. All right, all right. I found the clip. This clip is going to be about 45 minutes. And if I can show another clip, I will. But this is going to highlight the facts brought to you by a video that was taken down that I kept because they wiped this stuff off the internet. And if they take it off of YouTube, it's okay. Y'all can come to Rumble and watch the full video. Okay. And this is for information and educational purposes only. The hidden Islamic slave trade. Let's get to it.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to ABN's Training Channel for another episode of Colliding Worldviews. If you did not know, we are in the midst of a end-of-the-year 7-week special series with Dr. Jay Smith. Of course, last week in part 4 of the series, talking about the myth of the Andalusian paradise, I had Dr. Daniel Janosic with me, and that was a huge blessing. If you didn't see that episode or the episodes before that, please go to the Training Channel's YouTube channel and be able to find the videos there. You can also find them on Fander Films, which is Dr. Jay Smith's YouTube channel as well. And you can also find them on my Vimeo channel, vimeo.com/Tony Gurley. And now for part 5, we have Dr. Smith back once again. Today, we're talking about a very vital topic that a lot of people are not aware of when it comes to the history of Islam. We're talking about the hidden Islamic slave trade. Dr. Smith, it's great to see you again. Thank you once again for coming back to Colliding Worldviews.
Tony, thank you. It's good to be back here again. And yeah, you're right. This is a very controversial subject. It is a subject that has been around for hundreds of years, yet no one has talked about it. And I think why it's important, Tony, when you go and if you look at any of our textbooks, if you look at any of our courses on history, especially about the history of the slave trade, there's been only one slave trade. The only narrative that's out there, Tony, is the slave trade concerning the transatlantic slave trade. And because of that, that's the only narrative we've been taught. It's the only narrative we've grown up. We know that hundreds and hundreds of Afro-Americans have become Muslims because of this notion that Christianity, because the assumption is Christianity was responsible for that slave trade. These were Christian nations. These were European nations. And it's because of that European flavor, that Christian flavor, that slavery is unique to Christianity, that slavery is unique to the European continent, and therefore Islam has nothing to answer for slavery. That's what I've been taught, and that's what you're hearing. And when I did my master's thesis in America, I went up and down the East Coast to Baltimore, to Washington. I went to New York. I went as far up as Montreal, up in Canada, and I went to mosques. My thesis was on what is the attraction of Islam, and right at the top of the list for those who had converted to Islam, because almost the entire number of people that I was able to talk to were Afro Americans. This came up over and over again. One of the reasons why they accepted Islam and rejected Christianity was because they believed, and they had always been told, and they assumed that this was correct, that slavery was a Christian problem. Slavery was endemic in the Bible. Slavery has only been imposed on Africans by Christians, and that Islam was the answer. Islam was their religion. It was a black man's religion. It was a religion that has no racism. It was a religion that had no slavery. There is no slavery history in Islam. And that was the attraction. And I remember thinking this through. I said, that can't be right. That is not right. I know that I've heard lots of references, but there's no book out there. There's nothing that has been written on this. Now, on my team is a girl named Sarah Foster. Sarah Foster, and you can go up on the Founder YouTube and just look a year and a half ago. We were all talking about over a year and a half ago. She and I went down to Speaker's Corner. Sarah Foster is a descendant of slaves. Her slave history comes from Jamaica. She's a Jamaican. Her mother is a historian on slavery. She has been brought up her whole life hearing this narrative about the slave trade and about her past, and her whole identity has been wrapped up in this idea that she is a product of that European slave trade, that transatlantic slave trade. So she'd always assumed, therefore, that there was only one story, there was only one narrative, until she came across a number of books. One's written by Lovejoy, another written by Austin, and particularly another doctoral thesis written by Dr. John Azuma. Dr. John Azuma is from Ghana. He was troubled by his own history. He knew that his family had been involved in the slave trade, that they were actually slavers. And so he wanted to do his doctoral thesis on this. He had been a Muslim. He had converted to Christianity. And as a Christian, he realized that he has an awful lot to look into. He has an awful lot from his own family background concerning this. And he was the first one that I'm aware of that actually went back to the documents, went back to the original documents. Now, Tony, what we've been doing through all these 7 series is looking at the history, the historical critique, looking and seeing what the documents say concerning the history of the emergence of Islam, the history of the Quran, and now the history of slavery. So that's why we're now in this 5th segment, now tying it all into that historical fabric. We're going to do today what Dr. John Azuma did. He decided, rather than just hear this narrative that he's been brought up there there in Ghana, that slavery only went from the west coast of Africa. And as we're talking, I'd like the technician to put up slide number 19. Look at the map that is there. And I want you, Tony, to look at this map and tell me what you see when you look at this map. When you look at that map, that's the map that we're shown all the time. Have you noticed? Take a look at that map and what do you see? Just off the top of your head, what are some of the first things you come up with?
We see a lot of the, a lot of the lines going in some ridiculous directions there. We have the east coast of Africa heading south, or Cape Town, South Africa area, all the way up heading towards Mexico. And we just have some interesting lineage here, or the way these lines are pointed for the most part.
So let's keep that map up there. I want to take a look at it. And you brought up something that most people don't see, or most people haven't. There's no reason not to see this. This is the map. I just took this off the internet. This is just a typical map of the slave routes. And you notice almost all the slave routes are coming off of West Africa, the green lines. In fact, even on the east coast of Africa, as you notice, and this is something that most people don't pick up, you noticed it right away. Even the east coast, these are places like Lamu, and this is a place like Zanzibar. You've heard about the island of Zanzibar. Enormous amounts of history that's come out of the islands of Zanzibar. And yet, take a look and see where they have the lines going. They have them going around the Cape of South Africa. Ships couldn't go around that cape. No ships went around that cape. It was much too dangerous to send ships there because of the huge crashing storms they have there in South Africa. So that map is alive. What's more, it looks like there's only about 2 or 3 lines on the east coast of Africa. And look on the west coast, 10, 20 lines going out of the west coast. Well, it looks like all the trade was from the west coast of Africa. Now, this reason why I'm showing this map at the very beginning is when you look at that map, you will see some lines going up to the north of Africa. Do you see those? They look brown in my, what I'm looking at. They're actually red. But those red lines going up North Africa, no one's talked about those lines. And most curiously, no one's talked about the East Coast African slave. Now, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to show what the statistics are, and we're going to show that these have been the lie that we're getting all the time. I want the technician to put up the next slide, which is also part of 19, looking at the total slaves who left Africa. I want to look at that graph there, because we've got a graph to show you what the numbers are. And this is the numbers you've not heard before. Now, take a look at those numbers. And I've circled 2 different numbers. In green, I have 70 million. That's the number of slaves that left East Coast and North Coast, the North Coast of Africa and the East Coast of Africa. That is the Islamic number of slaves. Sorry, let me repeat that. Let me say that again. That's the trans-Saharan African North. That's only the number of slaves that left the North to go up through the trans-Saharan, 70 million. Look at the number that left the West Coast, what we know as the transatlantic slave trade. And you see that number is 11.7. So we do know the number that left West Africa. We even know where they went to. We know that they went to both the Americas. And that from the map that we see above that, you can see that they went to Brazil, and they went to the Dominican Republic, they went to Haiti, they went to my country, to America. We know, and here's what's also interesting, of the slaves that left West Africa and went to the Americas, we've always been told that almost all of them came to America, North America, United States. What John Azuma found by looking at the trading documents was that only 5% came to North America. 95% of the transatlantic slave trade went to Brazil and went to Central America and primarily the Caribbean, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, all those islands that are in the Caribbean. That's where 95% of the slaves went to. Now, here's the other big lie that we've not been told of. 17 million went up through the trans-Saharan. Where are the numbers for the East African slaves? Dr. John Azuma said that it could be as many as 3 to 4 million that went from the East Coast. You add that up together, and that's anywhere from, well, let's start with 17 million, going right up to 21 million. There could be as many as 21 million slaves that left the East Coast of Africa and went across the Sahara, the north part of Africa. Where did those slaves go to, Tony?
Well, we see them going east. We don't see them coming to North America. We don't see them going to Mexico or to South.
Don't look at that map anymore. You know that map is a lie. You can't even look at that map. We've already disputed that. There's no way any of that could have come south.
I'm sorry. We're talking about the politically correct public school map that we have here. That we showed first.
It's the only map that's out there, actually. That's the only map you're going to see. And that's why we're having this program. We're showing that the history of the slave trade has only been one history. And that was, as we're going to see later on, Bernard Lewis, who is probably the one that has done the most work on this from Princeton University. He has said that even this history was created after the Enlightenment to attack Christianity. But before we get into that quote, let's just go ahead and let's ask, can you see from that map, can you see from the statistics that the vast majority of slaves went from the east coast of Africa and the north coast of Africa, and they all went up to the north. And they all went to the Muslim world. Now, why have we not been told that? Why is it that Sarah Foster had to go do the research on this? She is the one that's put this all together. What we're going to do today is look at her research. And we're going to we're going to bring up some very inflammatory items from water material. So let's get right into it. Let's go. But I want to bring that up there. And then I want you to turn now, our technician, to take us to slide number 20, because we're going to look at the Islamic slave raids versus the transatlantic slave raids. Just look at that graph up there, doing a comparison to start off. This is what we've been known, and this is what's fascinating. When you, in Americas especially, most of our view of slavery came from a book called Roots, put out by Alex Haley, and came out from the documentary that he put out from that book. And at the opening sequence of that documentary, those who have watched, I imagine many who are watching today had watched that documentary. There was this scenario of Europeans coming into a village with cutlasses and destroying the village and taking all the people in chains. That the Europeans were the ones that actually enslaved the Africans. When Dr. Alex Haley wrote this up, and when he had done his documentary, different researchers in the University of Chicago confronted him on that and says, do you know of any documented case where this happened? And he could not come up with any documented case. But this is the only narrative he had heard, and this is the narrative that we've all been taught, that the slavery of Africans was done by Europeans. There's not been one documented case of any Europeans enslaving anybody. Now, that's fascinating. What's more, the slave trade existed over 1,000 years before the Europeans ever got into it. And what they have found now, and this is what Dr. Donna Zuma found, this is what also Lovejoy and Austin, they all found. These are the ones who've done the most work on this. They have all found that this slavery was done by Africans against other Africans. It was one tribe warring against another tribe, taking that tribe, bringing them into slavery, and then selling them to the Arabs. And the Arabs have always been a part of the slave trade. It was the Arabs that were there buying those slaves, putting them into chains, and then taking them up to the north across the Sahara. And the Muslims have been involved in that since the 7th century. That slave trade then was then introduced to the Europeans by the Arabs in 1400s. So for 700 years, the Muslims engaged and controlled and dominated the slave trade. It was only in the 1400s, 700 years later, that the Europeans started engaging in the slave trade. So for 700 years, this has been uniquely a Muslim slave trade. We've not been told that. What was interesting is the Europeans could not even go on the mainland because there were so many diseases on the mainland of Africa. And they didn't have resistance to these diseases. The Arabs were from that area. They lived there for centuries. They've been going up and down trading with the Africans. So they would bring the slaves out to islands on the coast. That's why when you go to Senegal, I lived in Senegal for 5 years. When you go to Senegal, just off the coast of Senegal is an island called Gorée. That was a slave island. That's where all the slaves from the west coast would come up, from the west coast of Senegal, would come up, and they would take them out by ship out to the islands, and the Europeans would come down to that island and buy the slaves at that island, but not on the mainland. So that's why there's no documented cases of any Europeans getting involved in any slavery. They never enslaved anybody. They bought the slaves from the Muslims, and always from the Muslims. We've known this really, but no one's bothered to talk about it. Now, they were involved in that slave trade. Now, let's just look at that graph there. When you look at the Islamic slave trade rates, and you compare it with the transatlantic slave trade, we know anywhere from 17 to 20 million slaves left the east coast and the north coast of Africa to go to the Islamic world, to go to the Muslim world. On the other side, the transatlantic slave trade was anywhere from 11 to 12 million, so much smaller and a much shorter time period. The Islamic slave trade still exists today. And we know that it still exists today. In fact, Tony, you've got some pictures that you'd like to show us that this slavery still exists today, does it not? We were talking about it last night. Go ahead and express what you now know about the slave trade that's continuing even today.
Well, the thing is that a lot of people, they hear about sex trafficking. And of course, that is a very unfortunate activity that is still taking place. But what people are not aware of is that slavery is still happening in many countries, still as much today as it did much long ago. I actually have some pictures here that we want to show. And pictures of modern day slavery in Libya. And as you'll see here, you'll see that this is still going on. These are very unfortunate, heartbreaking pictures that we're seeing. We have about 7 different pictures here that we're going to show you. And all of these are more recent photos. Now, CNN came out with a news story saying, oh, CNN exposes modern day slavery or whatever. I put on Facebook, my Facebook page, they need to change their name to JCL, Johnny Come Lately, because this has been going on for a whole long time. And this isn't just the recent thing that's been happening. And even like in countries like Mauritania, where in Saudi Arabia, where slavery was just recently outlawed, say within the last 20 years at the most. And that doesn't mean, okay, let's cut it off. It doesn't happen anymore. It is still happening. What we're saying is that within the last 20 years, there's different Islamic countries that finally said, okay, we guess this is wrong, publicly at least. But as we see, very, very pictures out of Africa here.
Tony, just to back you up on what you're saying, Baroness Cox is a good friend of mine. I worked with her. I worked for her in the last 25 years that I was in England. Baroness Cox, back in the early part of this century, so around 2000 to 2003, she went down to the Sudan, she went down to Mauritania, and she went down to Mali. And she went to slave markets in those countries and took a film crew with her and bought slaves on film to show that this is still going on only in Muslim countries today. She then freed the slaves on camera. That caused a huge furore in Britain. And in fact, there were some people that even said because she bought so many slaves and then freed them, it actually inflated the prices of the slaves in those markets. And so she had to stop doing it because she was actually, with the monies that she was infusing into that market, was inflating the prices. Now, she did it for one very important reason. This lie that Muslims have been saying that slavery does not exist anymore, that there is not, that this is only a Christian problem and this is only a Western problem. She wanted to shut that lie down. But as you say, if you look at the dates when slavery was eradicated, the abolition of slavery has only been done by Christians. The abolition of slavery was created by a group of people called the Clapham sect there in Britain. And look at the date. It was William Wilberforce who was then influenced by the Clapham sect, who was part of the Clapham sect. The Clapham sect was made up mainly of Quakers. Quakers are Christians. And the reason that the Quakers were confronting slavery was because of the Bible. They were looking at verses like Galatians 3:28, where there is no difference between man or woman, slave or Greek, Jew or Gentile. All are equal in Jesus Christ. They were looking at verses like Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, which says that we are all made in God's image. That means man, woman, Jew, Greek, slave, or free are all made in God's image. And primarily they were going to Philemon verse 16, where Paul sends back a slave to the master, to Philemon, and he says to the master, I'm sending him back to you. He is the slave that ran away. I'm sending him back to you, but you are no longer master to slave. You are now brothers in Christ. Redefining the whole relationship between slave and master as brother in Christ. And that's why the Clapham sect used it and confronted it. That's why William Wilberforce, his whole career, was engaged in confronting slavery. And that's why finally, in 1807, slavery was eradicated. Technically, it was eradicated in Britain. That did not really happen until around the 1830s, when it was finally, because it took an awful long time to confront and stop the slavery from down. Now, once it happened in Britain, it had a rippling effect right across Europe. We had a war against slavery here in the United States, the Civil War in the 1860s, 50s and 60s, and that's why it then moved right across the rest of the Western world. Take a look at the last two countries to eradicate slavery. Saudi Arabia in 1960, and Mauritania in 1981. So the last countries to actually abolish slavery were Muslim countries. What's fascinating, the only reason they abolished slavery was because the United Nations forced them to. They did not do it out of their own volition. And that's something that Muslims need to answer to, that Islam needs to come forward and admit that they are the only countries that were forced to eradicate slavery. Now, let's go back then to this graph that we had earlier, slide number 20.
Right before you do that, let me go ahead and show, just following up on what you just said, a few more pictures, and we want to get back to your graph. This is a picture here from my Facebook page where I have actually some links to YouTube videos people can go to. As you just said, these certain countries, okay, they then outlawed it because of the pressure from the United Nations. These URL links that are right here, these are from past months, not this, breaking CNN news story, oh, slavery is still happening today. These are actually YouTube videos you can go to, you can watch that were filmed 5 years ago, sometimes more, of this slavery that is still taking place. And people can see all this here. Of course, too, the other pictures that we can show you here real quick, these are actually pictures of books that you can get that talk about the Islamic slave trade. And actually one of them is one that, Dr. Smith, that you reference in this PDF that we're going through right now, a book by Bernard Lewis. But here are just some quick photos of some books that you might want to get to get more information about this Islamic slave trade that, again, is not found in the politically correct public school system or anything like that. Get these books, you're going to get a lot more information that we can actually go through on this episode of Colliding Worldviews. Dr. Smith.
Okay, let's go back then to slide number 20, and let's do a comparison, because this is where it gets very controversial, and this is where, when we have introduced this in the past, Muslims have got very angry with us. Rightly so. If I were a Muslim, I would get angry too, because when you do a comparison of the two slave trades, listen, we have absolutely Europeans and Christians have admitted that slavery did exist in the transatlantic slave trade. It existed from 1400 to 1800. What we have not looked at is the slavery that took place from the 7th century and still exists even today. For 1400 years, Islam has been involved in the slave trade. Why haven't we been told that? And why has this not been put into our history books? And why is this not being taught in our schools? And especially, why is this not taught to the Afro-American community and the Afro-Caribbean community? That they need to hear the real historical record. Now, when you look at that graph there, what was fascinating, when you look at the Islamic slave raids, they were interested in mostly women. 2 out of every 3 slaves were women. On the other side, the transatlantic slave trade, 2 out of every 3 slaves were men. Why is this? Why was the Arabs only interested in women and the Europeans mostly interested in men? The reason is very simple. The Europeans needed the slaves for their, they needed it for their, where you have, I can't even think of the name off the top of my head, where you have plantations, for the huge plantations in Brazil and in Haiti. They need them for work. These plantations had an enormous amount of trees that had to be cut. They had to have cultivation. It was, you needed thousands and thousands of people to work the land. That's why they need the slave. But in order to make sure that the slaves were healthy, and also to make sure the certain slaves were content, they also had to make sure the families came with them. So that's why they brought the women, who then would progeny and have children. And of course, the more children you had, the more slaves you would have for the future. Now, because of that, families were kept together. And of those that came across the Atlantic, only the mortality rate was only 10%. And we've heard about this. This is what comes up in almost every document. Look at the 10% that were killed. Absolutely heinous that they could kill 10%. They didn't kill 10%. These were lost en route. And many times they were lost because of storms, or some of them were even starved. There was terrible. It was no one apologizes for the fact, when we do apologize for the fact that there was a loss. 10% were lost. What's fascinating to me is that no one's asked how much of the percent of those that went through the Islamic slave trade were lost. Take a look at the numbers. 80 to 90% of slaves that went up in the Islamic slave trade, according to what Dr. John Azuma found, were lost. Let me give you an example. He noticed that the reason why only women were needed is because they needed them for sexual slaves, also to take care of the household. There were no plantations in the Middle East that they needed a lot of men for. So they usually killed off the men. That's why this 80 to 90% figure is there. More than that, the only men they really needed were eunuchs to take care of the harims, to take care of the women. Now, in order for them to make sure that they didn't have any problem with them, they castrated them. And what John Azuma found is that 95% of those who were castrated died from their wounds en route. Why haven't we been told this? That's heinous when you stop and think what Islam has done, the history and the testimony of what Islam is concerning humanity. Continue back, you can see the purpose for the Islamic slave trade was mainly sexual. The purpose for transatlantic slave was mainly agricultural. Now, here's where and now we're coming to the material that most Muslims get me upset with. When you look around the world today, and you look and see the progeny, the descendants of the slaves in the transatlantic slave trade, they still exist today. They're all over the Caribbean, they're all over South America. Brazil has an enormous population of descendants that come from slaves. This country of Haiti is mostly made up of descendants of slaves, Jamaica as well. You come to our country here in the United States, over 30 million descendants. Our last president, his wife, Michelle Obama, is a descendant of slaves. We know where the progeny of these slaves are. We know where they are all over our countries. They dominate our commerce. They're in our television industry. They're in our film industry. They're certainly in our music industry. So we know that descendants live, and though they may not live as well as they would like, and there are still some problems with discrimination and racism, at least we bring it out into the public and we talk about it and we try to wrestle with it. Let's ask the same question of Islam. Where are the descendants of those 17 to 21 million slaves? Now, if they did survive, if they had remained intact, there should be anywhere from 120 to 140 million of them today. Where is that 140 million slaves today? Where are these huge populations of slaves today? Descendants of slaves, today. Where are they? The fact that we can't find them proves that they were not interested in keeping families of slaves intact. They were seen as nothing more than maidservants and as for sexual exploitation. But their progeny were not permitted to survive. Very few of them have survived, and there are certain, you can see in Libya, and there are some parts of Egypt, and even every once in a while you will see that there are descendants of Arabs and slaves. But the vast majority were killed off. Now, this is the lie that we're not hearing in our history books. And this is why, and I can understand why Muslims get really upset when we talk about this, because it shows there's a real problem endemic with Islam concerning sexuality, concerning the need for women, but not progeniting those women if they're of the wrong color. Now, when you go down to the next graph, you will see Islamic slave raids, the next graph number, or slide number 20.1. Islamic slave raids in Europe. The slavery they didn't just enslave Africans. They also enslaved Europeans. And according to the latest statistics, from Sicily to Italy to Cornwall to England, even up to Baltimore and Ireland, they enslaved Europeans, galley slaves, laborers, and sexual exploitation from the 16th to the 19th century. These were the European slaves. And according to the latest statistics, anywhere from about around 1.25 million Europeans were also enslaved. What you won't find is that they did not enslave other Muslims. They did not enslave other Arabs. They only enslaved Africans and Europeans. And it was America that actually shut down that slave trade in Europe. It was the Marines, and that's why we have it in our Marine Corps hymn. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli is referring to the eradication of slavery by America. It was the United States that actually shut down that slavery in the Mediterranean to shut down the white slavery and enslavement. Now, as far as American slavery, we only know of 130 that were captured. So it didn't really touch the American slavery, yet we were the ones that had to shut it down. What I want to do now is I want to go back to something that's even more contentious. And I want to go back to talk about
Dr. Smith.
this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, before we do that, we do need to take a short break. I know people are really surprised, and I'm sure a lot of people are amazed at this information that we are presenting in this show. But we do have to take a short break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with more colliding worldviews and talking more about the hidden Islamic slave trade. One more reason why you need to make sure that you share this video with everyone out there so they can get educated about this practice, which is still happening today.
ABN Set TV Ministries is now part of Amazon Smile. This means that any purchase you make on their website, Amazon will donate 2% of your total purchase to ABN with no additional cost to yourself. All you have to do is sign up at smile.amazon.com, and after you sign in to your regular Amazon account, just search for our ministry by typing Aramaic Broadcasting Network. Then click select next to our name, and you're all set to support us. Set up your Amazon Smile account today by selecting Aramaic Broadcasting Network as the group you want to donate to. Be a part of Amazon Smile and help ABN Set TV Ministry grow by having Amazon donate to us whenever you make a purchase on their website.
Now in the palm of your hand is the updated ABN SAT app. So you can now watch all of the programs, shows, and channels in different languages. You can download the app in the App Store related to your device. Once downloaded, you will see 6 different categories within the ABN SAT app. The first category being the English category, which includes 18 different channels. The Arabic category includes 31 channels. The worship category has 5 channels.
Slave.
Going to the Nation of Islam, which most Sunni Muslims would consider heretical, but nevertheless, many African Americans go to Islam thinking, oh, this is the true religion of our ancestors, and all that kind of stuff. But Dr. Smith, what are we talking about in this show?
Well, and let's carry on from this, because this is what we're showing is that this is anything but the whole Islamic slavery is anything but benign. And the reason we're even bringing this up is because there's something endemic to Islam and slavery, and there's something endemic about the Africans. And what I want to do now is what Sarah did. Sarah then wanted to find out, why is it that Islamic slavery was so brutal? Secondly, was so huge? And thirdly, why is it was primarily generated by African slaves? And she wanted to go back and find out where this all came from. And so she went back to the traditions and to the hadith and to the Sunnah of the Prophet, known as the Sirah, the Hadith, the Tafsir, and the Taqrib, those genre. And then she went back to the Quran herself. And this is where Dr. John Azuma went back as well. And this is what she has found. So what I want to do is go to slide number 5 and look and see what the traditions tell us concerning the this reference to Muhammad himself. Muhammad, and let's start with him, since he is the paradigm for all Muslims. Muhammad scolds a woman for freeing a slave. We find this in Sahih Bukhari there, but the second one down on the screen there. Al-Hadi told him that she manumitted a slave girl without taking the permission of the Prophet. Manumitted means freeing a slave girl without taking the permission of the Prophet. Allah's prophet, Allah's apostle, said to her, you would have gotten more reward if you had given her, in other words, a slave girl, to one of your maternal uncles. Sahih Muslim talks about a case where Muhammad re-enslaves a freed slave, coming down to if the technician come down to the next reference point there on the screen. Muhammad cancels a manumitted slave. So here you have re-enslaves a freed slave. He emancipated 6 slaves. Muhammad then took and set 2 the free and kept 4 in slavery. And then he spoke severely against the person for manumitting them. Another case where Muhammad cancels the manumission, cancels the freedom of that slave in Sahih Bukhari. The Prophet canceled the manumission and scolded the slave for him. And then we go into another case in Sahih Bukhari where Muhammad redefines freedom. And he says, the freed slave belongs to the people who have freed him. So when you have examples like this of Muhammad himself, in their own traditions, not allowing people to even emancipate their slaves, and then coming back and actually taking four and then letting two free, but taking four for himself, and then scolding those who freed slaves. You can see if this is their example, you can see then why much of this is endemic to Islam. Let's go to slide number 6. In slide number 6, you have reference, and there are many of these references. Sarah only puts up 2 of them here. Al-Tabari, who is the first and most authoritative of the tafsir, the compilations, the commentaries that really unpack the Quran. It talks about Arabs. It says Arabs are the most noble people in lineage, the most prominent, and the best in deeds. And we won't have to read the rest. You can read it there on the screen. But what this is saying is that there is a view in the Muslim world that Arabs are superior to everybody else. Ibn Taymiyyah even says this, and when he's talking about Aisha, Muhammad said to Aisha, "Set this maid free because she is from the children of Ishmael." He would not allow that Arab to be enslaved because she's an Arab, and because she's an Arab, she must by right be free. Now, we're going to now look at some of probably the household names of Islam and what they said about African people. When I came across this material, when Sarah introduced it to me about 2 years ago, and when I read it, it bothered me enormously. And it will bother some of you who are going to hear this, especially Muslims. And I'd like our technician to put up slide number 7, looking at reference after reference after reference of the household names of Islam. These are men of God. These are people that any Muslim who's watching this show will recognize. And you look at the graph up there. This is Al-Jahiz, Al-Qutayba, Al-Tabari, Al-Muqaddasi, Ibn Sina, Nasr ad-Din al-Tusi, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Khaldun. You know these names. These are names I've had to study for the last 35 years. These are the names that everybody talks about. These, if the equivalent in Christianity would be the Calvins, these are the Martin Luthers, these are the Augustines of Christianity. These are the great men of God. They should know more than any other because they should have, but they had the scriptures at their disposal. They are the ones that interpret scriptures for Muslims today. Look and see what they say concerning African people. Let's start with some of the quotes. And these are straight quotes from their own literature. Al-Jahiz, a famous Muslim scholar who died in 869, said that like the crow among mankind are the Zunj. Zunj are African blacks. The word Zunj in Arabic is African blacks. For they are the worst of men and the most vicious of creatures in character and in temperament. We know that the Zunj are the least intelligent and the least discerning of mankind, and the least capable of understanding the consequences of actions. He goes on and says, they, the Shu'abiyah, which is the group of Africans that he's referring to, maintain that eloquence is prized by all people at all times, even the Zunj, despite their dimness and boundless stupidity. Their obtuseness, their crude perceptions, and their evil dispositions make long speeches, really ridiculing the Zunj among them. Ibn Qutayba lived in the 9th century again. He died in the late 9th century. He said, black people are ugly and misshapen because they live in a hot country. Hopeless, terrible things that you say, that you hear about. Let's continue on down to Al-Muqaddasi, who died in 1000 AD. Muqaddasi said, of the neighbors of the Wujja, the Maqdisi had heard that there is no marriage among them, and the child does not know his father, and they eat people, but God knows best. As for the sons, they are people of black color, flat noses, kinky hair, and little understanding or intelligence. Now, how many of you have heard these kind of quotes before? I've never heard about this before. We were not taught this. This was never brought up in any of our books when I grew up, went to school. This was unheard of, and yet Sarah and Dr. John Zuma have been coming across these quotes. Ibn Sina, we all know, he's a household name, says that blacks are people who are by their very nature slaves. In other words, they are meant to be slaves. Nasr ad-Din al-Tusi, a Shiite Muslim scholar and Grand Ayatollah, died in 1274, says of all types of men are taken from the first in one place after another, like the Negro from Zanzibar on the East Coast. In the South, the most countries, the Negro does not differ from an animal in anything except the fact that his hands have been lifted from the earth, in no other peculiarity or property except for what God wished. Many have seen that the ape is more capable of being trained than the Negro, and more intelligent. I mean, it's even hard for me to read this stuff. To me, it's filthy. This should not be, I mean, you can see why this is not brought into our school books. But why is it we've not been told that men like Al-Tusi, one of the most celebrated Shia Muslim scholars, Grand Ayatollah in 1274, would say things like this about Africans. Ibn Khaldun, another household name, an Islamist jurist, lawyer, scholar, theologian, and Hafiz, died in 1406, said, therefore, the Negro nation are, as a rule, submissive to slavery because Negroes have little that is essentially human and have attributes that are quite similar to those of dumb animals, as we have stated. Beyond known peoples of Black West Africa to the south, there is no civilization in the proper sense. There are only humans who are closer to dumb animals than to rational beings. They live in thickets and caves and eat herbs and unprepared grain. They frequently eat each other. They cannot be considered human beings. I mean, to me, it's just real as I'm reading this. To me, it's hard. I don't even like to have to even go into this. And that's why it's sad that these have yet to be apologized for. No one's really read them before. We're the first to bring it out into the open. Let's go on, Tony, and let's look at colorism, because this is something that Sarah has been focusing in on. And that she brought up into the open, this idea of the black color. Now, when you start with the black color, I'm going to jump to the next slide, to just slide number 9. Because when you get into colorism, now let's look at that slide that you have up there. Thanks for putting it up. The Arabs are sometimes described themselves as black in contrast to Persians, who are red, but at other times as red and white in contrast to Africans, who are black. During the period immediately following the death of the Prophet in 632, a new situation was created, narrowing, specializing, and fixing a color term applied to human beings. A very clear connotation of inferiority was attached to the darker and more specific to black skins. So this is coming from Bernard Lewis. Bernard Lewis is saying, a very well-known scholar from Princeton University, said that this idea of blackness, this idea of coloration, was introduced with Islam. It was Muslims who started making this distinction, the black versus other colors. Now, going down to the Quran, and I like to bring up the Quran at this time because you have 2 verses in the Quran that really suggest this. One is the Surah Ayah 3, chapter 3, Ayah 106. If we could bring up slide number 9 here. And here you can see these 2 verses that are well known. We brought them up at Speaker's Corner. Muslims have tried to attack them. The first verse, chapter 3, verse 106, or Surah 3, Ayah 106. On the day of resurrection, when some faces will become white and some faces will become black. As for those whose faces will become black, to them will be said, did you reject faith after accepting it? Then taste the torment in hell for rejecting faith. Now, I don't know how you can look at that verse any other way than looking and seeing that the assumption there is that the people that go to heaven have white faces, the people that go to hell have black faces. You're making this distinction of good versus bad, good being white, bad being black. Chapter 39, verse 60, Surah 39, verse 60, and on the day of resurrection, you will see those who lied about Allah with their faces blackened. Is there not a hell in residence for the arrogant? So if you lie, your faces are turned or become black. So this idea of coloration is introduced in the Quran itself, suggesting that black is evil, white is good. And you can see that why then you get to the traditions. Now if you go to slide number 10, because there you get coloration that's coming out of the traditions. Bukhari talks about that you should listen to and obey your ruler, even if he is an Ethiopian slave whose head looks like a raisin. The suggestion there is not only heinous, it's downright wrong. Well, Sunan An-Nasi 4185. The prophet says, sell him to me, and he bought him for 2 black slaves. So this one person is equal to 2 black slaves. So you can see that this idea of black people being tapped in importance as someone who's not black is on the lips of the prophet himself. Ibn Majah goes on he says, do not marry women for their beauty, which may destroy them, or for their money, which may corrupt them for religion. A slit-nosed black slave woman of pious is preferable, assuming that somehow that is the worst of the categories for women, being black-nosed, black-faced. Ibn Hazm in 1064 says, God has decreed that the most devout is the noblest, even if he is a Negro's bastard. and that the sinner and unbeliever is at the lowest level, even if he's a son of the prophet. So, idea that even if he's a bastard, that's the worst thing you can think of. He's still, if he is pious, he's noble. Fascinating that they would use this kind of language. Jami al-Tirmidhi, Ibn Abbas narrated that the black stone, that's the stone that's in the Kaaba right now, descended from paradise, and it was more white than milk. Then it was blackened by sin. That sin created this blackness of the stone itself. And then Tirmidhi goes on to say, Allah created Adam when he had to create him and struck his right shoulder, and there emitted from it white offspring, as if they were white ants. He struck his left shoulder, and there emitted from it the black offspring, as if they were charcoal. He then said to those who had been emitted from the right shoulder, for paradise I do not mind. Then he said to those who were emitted from the left shoulder, they are for hell, I do not mind. Now remember, these are traditions, but can you see this kind of attitude? If you see it in the traditions, and this is what creates Islam today, you cannot understand Islam without going to Tirmidhi or Ibn Majah, you have to go to Bukhari, Muslim. These are the ones that are giving us the sayings of the Prophet himself. If this is what Muhammad believed, if this is what they said, if this is what the great men of God were like, then you can understand why this view of coloration is endemic to Islam, is part and parcel of the DNA of Islam. Let's now look at what Muhammad looked like. And this is fascinating. Sarah put this graph together. I just want to show it to you. Slide number 11. Muhammad's appearance. When you look at Muhammad's appearance, when you look at that, what Al-Bukhari says, that Muhammad was a white man. So Al-Bukhari even referred to him as a white man. According to Ibn Dawud, that he had a white forearm. According to Al-Bukhari, he had a white abdomen and belly. According to Al-Bukhari again, he had white legs. He had white shanks. According to Sahih Muslim, he had a handsome white face. According to Al-Bukhari, he even had white armpits. And then according to Al-Adab al-Mufrad, that he had white skin. And then according to Bukhari, that he was not really completely white, but he was white. This reference over and over again that Muhammad had to have been white, that his legs, his shanks, his skin, his face, even his armpits were white. And then even Musa al-Yasumi says, anyone who says that the prophet was black should be killed. So to even refer that, even intimate that Muhammad could have been black, they should be killed for that. Can you then understand why then this idea of blackness was something that was introduced, that is evil? Let's go to slide number 12. Ibn Dawud talks about the fact that black dogs must be killed because they are evil. Kill every pure black one. Going on to kill the jet black ones because they are more mischievous. Sahih Muslim refers to the saying that the black dog is like a devil. When we go back to Al-Bukhari, coming on down, volume number 9, book 87, if we could bring it down just a bit. Al-Bukhari, we're going much quicker here because you can read these on your own time. They're up there on your screen. Go back and you can see them. But according to Al-Bukhari, it says that black women cause epidemics. The prophet said, I saw in a dream a black woman who with unkempt hair going out of the Medina and settling in Mahia. I interpreted that as an epidemic of Medina being transferred to Mahia, namely Al-Huda. So even Muhammad thought the black women brought about epidemics, brought sickness. And then finally, he says, according to Sunnah al-Nasai, that somebody said Abu Khafa was brought to the day of the conquest by Malika, and his hair and beard were white like a thagama. The messenger of God, that means Muhammad, said, change this with something but avoid black. Anything but black. So you can see these references all going back to the tradition. Now, Bernard Lewis, let's go to the next slide. Bernard Lewis brings this up. And he says that the Arabs sometimes describe themselves as black in contrast to Persians, who are red, but at other times as red or white in contrast with Africans. The characteristic color of the Bedouin is variously stated as olive or brown. During this period, Bernard Lewis says, immediately following the death of the prophet in 632 AD, the great Islamic conquest took the new faith to vast areas of Asia and Africa. A new situation was created, and many changes can be observed in the literature of that time. So when you look at the literature, you will see, he says, the first of these is the narrowing, specializing, and fixing of color terms applied to human beings. So they started making and saying, this person's red, this person's yellow, this person's brown, and this person is black. In time, almost all disappear apart from black, red, and white. And these become ethnic and absolute instead of personal and relative. Together with this specialization of fixing of color terms comes a very clear connotation of inferiority attached to darker and more specifically black skins. So Lewis is saying that this was all introduced by Islam and made the specialization of one color with another was very much part of that. When we look at the attitudes in the early Islamic literature, you will see this. Looking at slide number 14, look at this, and you can see that the Africans of that time, the African origin poet named Suhaib in 660. Now, this is 30 years after Muhammad died. Look and see what he says. If my color were pink, he says, women would love me. But the Lord has marred me with blackness. Though I'm a slave, my soul is nobly free. Though I am black of color, my character is white. I am covered with a black garment, he says, but under it is a lustrous garment with white skirts. You can see he's agonizing as he realizes how terrible he must be because he's being black. Where's he getting this idea that he's terrible? Well, obviously from all the literature, from everything he's hearing, from the prophet's own lips. Another black poet, Abu Dalama, a father of blackness known today in 7768, is probably the best known early black poet in Arabic literature, a slave who became a court jester during the first Abbasid caliphs, said this: "We are alike in color, our faces are black and ugly, our names are shameful." And Jahiz of Basra in 869, one of the greatest prose writers in classical Arabic literature, and made partly of African descent, in a special essay called The Boast of Blacks Against Whites, he said this: "It is part of your ignorance that in the time of heathendom, that means before Islam, that's the Jahiliyyah period, you regarded us blacks as good enough to marry your women. Yet when the justice of Islam came, you considered this wrong." So this all came about because of Islam. We were okay. You can even marry your women. Oh, sorry, this stretches back there in the Jahiliyyah period. But once Islam came, then we could no longer marry your women. And I see that we need to keep going. So let's jump now to slide number 18. Bernard Lewis picks this up and he says, the myth of Islamic racial innocence was a Western creation and served a Western purpose, he was saying. So what he's saying is basically this whole idea of the innocence of Islam was brought up after the Enlightenment. He goes on to say in the 18th century, so we're talking about the 1900s, the 1700s, the philosophers of the Enlightenment, had praised Islam for its lack of dogmas and mysteries, its freedom from priests and inquisitors and other persecutors, recognizing real qualities but exaggerating them as a polemical weapon against Christian church and the clergy. That's what they want. They wanted to go against the church and the clergy. And so what you can see what's happening here is because of that, he says, going on to David Goldenberg, Lewis did not find any black sentiment in Arabia until the 7th century conquest of Africa and enslavement of its inhabitants. Snowden and Thompson, who also did the research on this, similarly did not find a prejudiced view of blacks in ancient Greece or Rome. In these earlier times, color did not define a person. These were not known in early literature, especially during the Greeks and the Roman times. We first see this explicitly between skin color and slavery in Near Eastern sources beginning in the 7th century. We note its first appearance in the Christian West. When it came to the Christian West, as soon as the Europeans discovered Black Africa and began to engage in the slave trade in the 1400s, so the 15th century. So this idea of black being evil, about black being denigrated to be less than human, that was all introduced by Islam and was introduced in the 7th century, Bernard saying, and so is Thompson. And so is the other scholars. Fascinating that it is Islam that brings this coloration in. So let's now go to, and then we'll end off with this, slide number 21. Why? The questions we need to ask. And this is what we need to ask our Muslims who are watching this though. Why did Islamic thought borrow from sectarian Jewish and apocryphal writing? Why did the advent of Islam bring about the fixing of color terms for human beings? Why did Muhammad cancel the manumission of some freed slaves? What caused the Zionist Africans to rebel in the 7th century under the rule of the second best generation of Islam? And if Islam came to abolish slavery, when did that abolition begin? And why are Muslim countries the last to eradicate slavery? We don't know of one abolition movement in any Islamic country. All the abolition that came about was imposed on them from outside. So therefore, would you follow this example of Prophet Muhammad and take slaves if the circumstances satisfy? When we go to slide number 22, we'll do a comparison now. Because when you look at the comparison between Christianity and Islam, you will see on slide 22 that Christianity, the narrative there is that we go from slavery to freedom. In Islam, the narrative there is that we go from slavery to slavery. You stay in slavery. In Christianity, it's voluntary. You either become a slave or you are a slave to Christ. In Islam, it's involuntary. You're imposed upon you. And that's why you see it's still happening in today by those pictures that we showed earlier. In Christianity, we have freedom in Yahweh, as was always the plan. In Islam, slaves to Allah was always the plan. In Christianity, Jesus did not trade or own slaves. Nowhere do we see an example of that. In Islam, Muhammad traded and owned slaves.
Because you can fake for a long time, but one day you're going to show yourself to be a phony.
That's for true.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what these, a lot of people are doing these days. Watch people.
No, you probably won't be here right now.
Fuck the world, I'ma walk in erection. Spit without a thought, we do it reckless. Your nigga called us texting. You said, baby, don't be mad, you know how wet it is.
Turn up in your mouth if you ain't speaking good to me. I ain't built like him. Fucking with a G.